What's up? What's up? Welcome back, everybody. Alteracious, nice to see you. Yeah, I got your email. I responded to it. The issues we were having yesterday have been identified and solved. Okay, so here's the deal. Hold on. Here's the deal. The deal is that I was sent on a wild goose chase. A wild goose chase because of one critical error that I made. And it's an error that, you know, anybody can make it. That error was not reading the instructions. So here's the deal. The Voltar QSB that we've installed here is great. But one thing that's odd about the Voltar QSB is that for the O line, for the audio output, there is a jumper. Little jumper right here. Now, that jumper connects the audio output to the cartridge port from this location right here. Which is, I think it's originally that's intended for the standard, like, top loader installations that use, Tim's included 8-pin mini DIN. That's supposed to be how you wire up audio, I guess. And this mod that we've done repurposes that pad for other reasons. And the Voltar QSB accounts for that by having a jumper there that you can open, which disconnects the audio output here from the multi-AV, and then we swap out these components, and that creates a new voltage mix, a new audio mix that we're generating, and then we repurpose the output pad here to go to the cartridge instead of the AV port. What was happening is that the audio, because this jumper was closed, the AV port audio was being mixed into the cartridge audio, which caused, instead of the correct audio levels being sent to the cartridge to get mixed in with the expansion audio, you were getting full AV port audio fed into the cartridge and then back to the AV port. So the expansion audio was there, but it was completely wrong in the mix. So whenever I cleared the jumper, then we get proper expansion audio. And we'll go ahead and actually fire it up and show that we do indeed have expansion audio. Oh, we have to plug it has to be plugged in. We have to plug it in. Doesn't work without power, sadly. Is the game audio not high enough? I've got it maxed out. Can you guys not hear the game audio? Okay, so expansion audio is in here now. And I can actually demonstrate. So what was happening is if I use my tweezers here to close this jumper while it's running, you can hear that the regular audio completely takes over and overpowers the expansion audio mix, which is what was happening because this jumper was closed the whole time we were testing. But if you open the jumper, then the mix becomes more balanced and you can actually hear the expansion audio. So, all right, I'm turning it back down. Anyway, so there you go. The expansion audio is working. It's just there's a jumper that you have to clear on the Voltar QSB. And the reason that it's not... the reason that I didn't notice this is because the Voltar QSB doesn't actually have installation instructions that I can find. I couldn't find any installation instructions. But on the product listing on LaserBear's website, which I think is where you get these from, because he sells them, it does have a note on it that says, for AV Famicom, disconnect this jumper. But that's the only place that it actually says it that I could find. So, because of the fact that there's not like included installation instructions, I didn't even look, to be honest with you, to find, because it seemed pretty self-explanatory how you would install the QSB, and there were no specific instructions for the AV Famicom installation, so I just didn't even look. But that's all it is. There's just a jumper that needs to be cleared. And I'm guessing it's like that because... why would it be like that? Maybe the top loader? Maybe this kit also is usable on the top loader NES, which doesn't have expansion audio? I'm not sure. But anyways... So that's done. That mod is done. Everything was installed correctly. It's just the installation instructions on Retro RGB, which is what I was looking at. Those instructions did not have any particular mention for the Voltar QSB, because I think those instructions actually may have predated the Voltar QSB. I don't think that existed yet. You could hear some weird noise. What do you mean? There's some humming, but that I think is just coming from my cheapo power supply. The only AC adapter I have for Famicoms is this garbage switch mode power supply, and it's awful. Yeah, I'm getting like some AC line hum. No, it was... Okay. Yeah, you see, the thing is with the top loader, I've never actually even worked on a top loader. So I don't, they don't have an AV port, right? They're just RF on the back. Is there a spot? Do they use the same motherboard, or do they use a different motherboard revision? Or, well, I guess it wouldn't be the same motherboard, but do they use a similar layout? Does it have a spot for the AV port and it's just not populated, or is that a totally separate thing that you're installing for the AV port on a top loader? All right, we've got a couple more things we need to do on this Famicom. We've got to do the zapper restoration, and we've got to install the IGR wiring for the... We've got to install the IGR wiring for the NESRGB palette switching. Sounds like some of the channels are stuttering. I don't know what you mean. No, well, I'm listening to it on my PVM speaker, so you're probably hearing, the mic is probably picking some of it up, but I've also got direct audio coming out from my HDMI capture card off of the RetroTink. I've turned the PVM down. Maybe you're hearing a slightly delayed double, like the mic is picking up and the RetroTink is not perfectly in sync with each other. It's turned down now, or how does it sound now? Aside from the hum, which I'm pretty sure is just the AC adapter, because the mod is installed exactly the way that the instructions say to. Sure, let's... Hey, Belmont. Yeah, the Voltar QSB has a jumper on it that you have to clear for expansion audio for this mod. And it's, since the Voltar kit doesn't have instructions with it, I didn't notice that. It's on the product. If you look at the Voltar NESRGB QSB product page at Laser Bear, it does say that in the notes, but there's not like a clear set of instructions that I was looking at, so that's why I didn't notice it, because I didn't read the website. So but yeah, so that was expansion audio. I figured that out about 5 minutes after we went off stream last night. I went looking at the Voltar. I went looking for the Voltar video on this, which I couldn't find a Voltar video specifically about, use the same audio mod that we're doing here. Voltar has a different one. But, yeah, anyway, the only Voltar video I could find on this, he did some different audio mod that's not what this balance mod was. And so I didn't, since I had already done the modification, I was like, well, okay, this can't be it. So I went looking at the QSB page, and it was right there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't notice that. But anyway, it is what it is. All right, now I need to pull up Tim's instructions on how to wire up the IGR on this version of the NESRGB board. So give me a second. Okay. AV Famicom. All right, so it says J1 is palette selection mode, open is mechanical switch, closed is controller. So we need to close J1 on the NESRGB board. All right, J2 is not relevant to this. J6 is reset polarity. Open equals negative. Famicom NES on the polarity. Okay, so open is what we want. J10. Oh, do you want de-jitter turned on? I don't think we discussed that on the email. J10 turns on the de-jitter timing. I'm not sure if you need that or not. That's typically for the OSSC, but I don't know if I don't know what scaler setup you're using, or if you have any issues with jitter in your setup. Okay, yeah, you shouldn't need this then, especially not with a RetroTink and a CRT, of course. You don't. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll leave J10 open. That'll leave the dejitter timing turned off. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear my jumper that I did here, which I can't do with that iron, but I can do it with this iron. And now these pads become the IGR pads. Okay, so reset out, data, clock, and latch. All right. Let me grab some wires. Ah, yes, Friday. Pouring concrete, you say, Belmont. That seems like a pain. Well, I hope you enjoy your weekend. Glass blowing, that's awesome. Glass blowing is super cool. When I was a kid, my family would always go to an amusement park. We live in the South. We go to an amusement park called Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. And they have a glass blowing demonstration that we always watched when we were kids. And I always thought it was the coolest thing ever. Oh, you've been to... Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Silver Dollar City's awesome. Okay, we don't need this ground pad, right? Why would we need this ground pad? This NESRGB's got to be connected to ground, like everywhere, right? Is ground common for, is it common ground for the controller ports? I would assume, right? Let's poke it. So that's ground. So that does connect to the main ground for the rest of the board. And well, I don't know. I don't know why it would need to be. This ground is already... So, this ground point is already connected to the main ground of the... To the main common ground of the... Yeah, but this ground point here is already connected to the main ground plane of the board. So it's if we run a wire to a ground point over here, we're just going to be connecting ground again, which is already connected. So I think that ground wire is, I'm going to call it and say it's pointless. You don't need that ground wire. I think it's actually, no, okay, the reason it's there, it doesn't have anything to do with IGR. It's there because of the switch. If you're using the mechanical switch, you need a ground point for the switch to throw each of these pads into to activate or deactivate. So that's why it's there. It's just as an artifact of using the same pads for the switch as we're using for IGR, it still has the ground pad there, but you don't actually need to connect it because it's already connected to the ground of the system. So, all right, so we need 4 wires. I think I'll start up here on the NESRGB side. Oh, thanks, Patrick. No, I didn't go to a trade school. I actually got my start on the old, if y'all are familiar with, well, some of you might have been around back then. So everybody knows the BitBuilt forums, right? For portabilizing. Well, there was the precursor to the BitBuilt forums was the binheck.com forums. And that is where I hung out whenever I was a teenager. I think I was like 13 when I started going to the binheck.com forums. I hung out there all the time. And that's where my interest in all of this stuff came from. And I did a bunch of projects, never actually completed a portable, which was very common. That's a common theme on the binheck.com forums, that you start a portable, but you never finish it. So there was that. But that's where I started out. And then whenever I got out on my own, working, I was a electronics technician for basically an electronics recycling company. And then I did a couple other technician jobs after that, and just basically just learned stuff as I go over the years, and try to amass more experience and more knowledge in different areas everywhere I go, and that's basically it. But no formal education on any of this stuff. I do read a lot. I like to read data sheets. I don't recommend reading data sheets. It's not fun, but you can learn valuable information in data sheets and application notes and stuff like that. There's also some great books you can read too, like The Art of Electronics is great. The first book I ever read about electronics, or about basically electricity, period, was a very old book called Basic Electricity, the Naval Electrician's Manual, Training Manual. It's like ancient. It's like from the 70s or the 60s. But it's a great resource it gives you a lot of information about how electricity works. It gives you a lot of the fundamentals, the math, lots of problems you can go through. It's good. It's a good baseline bit of knowledge about electricity that is a good starting point. Although a lot of the stuff is outdated, because not about how electricity works, because that hasn't really changed, but topics that get discussed there are a lot of things that are not really relevant. Audio it's duplicated. It's basically mono, but duplicated onto both channels. That's my understanding. So, but yeah, the NES is mono, so there is no stereo, from what I understand. Yeah, Belmont, the Super Nintendos, if they've got problems, it's probably one of the PPUs or the CPU. Yes. Oh, I feel you. The purchasing non-working pieces of electronics with the hope that you can use it as a troubleshooting experience, like an exercise, and then you find out that it's just like dirty or something, is always like, it's such a disappointment. I mean, it's nice that you've got something that works, but it's always a disappointment when you don't actually get the experience you were trying to get out of it. I think on the Voltar QSB, I think it's got audio on both. Well, you know what? I don't know for sure, but I think that the audio is just duplicated on this Voltar QSB. Let's see. Gotta look at a pin out. I can't remember which pins are L and R audio on the L and R. Yeah, left and right are just, they're just jumpered together on here, so you get mono on both channels. It's just literally both left and right are connected to mono. Patrick, to your question about whether being self-taught is the way to go, I mean, that depends on what you want to do. Because if you want to transition to hardware, like you said you're a software engineer, like if you're wanting to transfer to hardware design to work for a company, I mean, you probably need education. You probably need credentials, not necessarily because that's the best way to learn per se, but just because to get hired. Now, if you want to do your own thing, if you've got your own hardware you want to design to sell yourself, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with going self-taught, but you do have to, like, it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I'm competent, which I don't even want to necessarily say that I'm competent, but, you know, I've been teaching myself basically for 20 years. And that's a long time of learning, and the level of ineptitude that I had back whenever I was, you know, a teenager doing this work for the first time, and then moving into a technician role where I was learning a lot of things from troubleshooting, but not from designing, but it was valuable information that translated to design. But yeah, I wouldn't even, it's just hard to say. Like, if you already know what you're trying to accomplish and you already know enough about it that you feel like you can put together a competent design, then that's great. And self-taught is great for that sort of thing, but I can't say for sure that it's a better move one way or another. It really depends on your situation. Okay, let's see. So this is going to pass through. I checked earlier, but yeah, this shielding has an opening. So this will pass through this opening if I route it around the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this wire off with a little extra slack so that I can work out so that I can work out exactly how long I need each one of these wires to be before I do the final trim. So let's see. Okay, I think that's a fairly good route. Okay, so this pin here is the reset pin, this first one here. So I'm going to peel that off. That's our reset pin. Let me pull up my instructions again. Okay, so the reset signal needs to go over here. And it needs to be soldered to this pin right here. I think actually the full length of the wire that I gave myself is what we need. Well, you know what? If you're just trying to do modding, self-taught is a great way to go. I wouldn't take, if you're just wanting to like install mods for people, yeah, self-taught all the way. I wouldn't go to school for this. For one, like, there's no, I don't know that any classes that you would take would be able to tell you what you really need to know for this kind of work. Now, if you're going to be designing mods from scratch, well, that all depends on what the mod is. And then again, I don't know. I think self-taught is actually really good for, if you're going to work for yourself, self-taught is probably the way to go in most industries these days. Or in most fields, I should say, rather. Not industries. If you're going to be in industry, not working for yourself, then, yeah, you still need an education just because that's how you get hired. But if you're working for yourself, in a field where it's feasible to work for yourself, I'd say being self-taught is probably the way to go almost always. But that partly depends on how you learn as well. Some people are not as good at learning when teaching themselves compared to having an instructor guide them. So again, it's hard to say. Okay, let's see. So reset, then it's DCL. DCL. So D. C and L. All right. And this is the first controller port we're going to be going to. So that's data, which goes to this top pad right here. Then clock goes to the bottom pad, and then latch. Okay, let me double check. So it was data, clock, latch. Data, clock, latch. And then we've got, I'd say that's enough slack there. Oh, okay, Patrick. I just saw your chat. So you work in embedded systems, so you're already closer to the hardware than most software developers anyway. If you were doing web development, I don't know that it'd be exactly the same. But yeah, you're probably in a pretty good spot to move into hardware, I would imagine. Hey Belmont, is the controller player 1 and player 2 data, clock, and latch and everything are routed to the expansion port, right? So if I use my expansion adapter to hook up a Super Nintendo controller, I can test the IGR this way, right? Because I don't have an NES controller on hand. The only way I can do any controls on this AV Famicom is through that adapter. Okay, so for the AV Famicom Zapper restoration that we're going to be doing, we just need to solder two, it looks like just 2 wires. This goes to controller port 2. Unfortunately, I don't have a zapper, so I can't test this, but I will install it, and then we will expect it to work. That's where we're at there. We'll move these audio lines out of the way for a second here. Okay, so we're going to be connecting these 2 pads to these 2 pins right here. All right, I've got a wire trimmed up, should be about the right length. And I've got it tinned already, so we're gonna just solder it to this pin here on the expansion port, and this pin here on the expansion port. And then let's see. Okay. That line connects there, that line connects there. Looks good. Yeah, these cutters that I have, I don't know if the camera can pick this up. You'll notice that they've developed a dull spot. It's actually a hole. I don't know if this, hold on, try to put it over this. You might be able to see faintly, there's like a small hole there, a dull spot. Well, I've cut these so many times. I've cut so many things with these that I've developed like a dull spot there, and it works great as strippers for these wires because it's too dull to readily cut through in that particular spot. So I can use it to strip and to cut at the same time. That's what I do. Alright, so that's all the mods installed on this one. We're gonna go ahead and try to see if the IGR, if I can test the IGR using the expansion port, which I believe I can, because I think all of these same connections go to the expansion port from the controller port. Let's see. Well, maybe not. Okay. I think that's latch. So latch is definitely connected to the... Clock is connected to the expansion port. But... seems that the player 1 data is not connected to the expansion port directly. Which I guess that makes sense, because you would need some sort of way to resolve conflicts between the controller port and the expansion port if you had a controller plugged into the expansion port and the controller port. They were both... You need a way to to deal with bus conflicts. So that means that I can't test the IGR, unfortunately, because I literally don't have a controller for NES. But there's no reason it shouldn't work. Let me probe out the wiring and we'll see. We'll make sure that everything is in the right place. So data, that goes here. Yep, that's right. Okay, next one is latch. Yep, and then last one is clock. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's all wired up correctly. The jumper is set correctly, so there's no reason this shouldn't work. But, actually, now that I think of it, let's see. There might be a way that I can test this. So, okay, controller 1 data is on pin 13. Okay, here's how I'm going to test it. Controller 1's data pin on the expansion port is pin 13. So what I'm going to do is real quick, I'm just going to run a jumper wire from the expansion port over to the controller 1 port so that the IGR can pull the data from that port temporarily. And since we don't have a controller plugged in there, there won't be a bus conflict, so it shouldn't be an issue. Actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. There would be a bus conflict because the data would be connected to that controller port. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to briefly disconnect the data pin that I soldered in here. And move that off to the side. Changing the capacitor, would that be for the is that for the reset function specifically, or is that just for sampling the controller at all? My guess is that the capacitor that issue might be something to do with reset specifically. I'd be surprised if a capacitor could interfere with the controller being able to be sampled for palette switching and stuff. But we'll find out here in a second. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just gonna jumper a wire temporarily from pin 13 of the expansion port over to my data pin that I ran over here. That way, the expansion port is connected to the NESRGB instead of the controller port. Then I'll put it back to normal after that. Okay. We're getting no video. Is that because of the EverDrive? Yes. All right, let's see. Start select left. Well, hold on. Can't tell. Doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, IGR is definitely not working. Okay, let me see something here. Okay, so the NES RGB, this whole capacitor thing seems to be related to front loaders, not top loaders. So, because I'm looking at it right now, it says power on delay of the NES is too short. Timing capacitor must be changed. It's just Famicom consoles normally fine. The NESRGB can detect if the timing delay is incorrect and will blink at the LED 7 at power up. Well, let's see. LED 7 does not blink, so that seems to be fine. Now, IGR is not working, and I'm not sure why, because it is wired correctly, and I do have, let's see, the data pin for player 1. That should be... Oh. Oh, okay. So the pinout I found online was not correct. Hold on. I can fix this. Okay. All right, IGR is working. But the EverDrive doesn't like to be reset whenever it's already in a game. So, all right, let's see. Okay, but if we reset it from the EverDrive menu, it restarts. Okay, and then let's try changing the palette. Okay, it was start select left, right? Or start select right. Left or right? Oh, yeah. Oh, we're changing palettes, baby. Look at those different palettes. All right, what else can we do? Oh, start select left. Hold for 2 seconds. Disables the NESRGB. Yep. I don't know what mode we're in now. That's weird. Okay, so I disabled the EverDrive, or I disabled the NESRGB by holding start select left for 2 seconds. Whenever I re-enabled it, the colors were all messed up. Oh, my bad. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. Oops. Okay, yeah, so we've got IGR. We can change color palettes. Like so. We can reset. Okay. Anybody who has an EverDrive N8, when you reset an EverDrive N8 in game, for me it always crashes. Is that normal? It doesn't reset properly. It'll crash. Okay, I'm going to try that disabling the output again. So it's start select left for 2 seconds. Okay. Then we'll turn it back on. Start select left. Okay, looks normal. Alright, so the IGR is working. Do I have a real card? Yeah, I bought it directly from Crix. Yeah, if I reset, like if I hit the reset button here, see, you get the OS init prompt up there in the corner, but then it just goes to a black screen. But if I turn the console off and then back on, then it initializes correctly. And then if we're in the menu, it'll reinitialize just fine. But if I actually load a game, and then hit the reset button, it just crashes to a black screen. And this is how it behaves on my twin Famicom as well. Oh no, I don't own any real cartridges for the Famicom. I've got a Gyromite cartridge right here, but I don't think it's the... Hold on. This might be the version that has a Famicom cartridge inside of it. Oh. Let's see, I need a... Let me check this Gyromite cartridge. It might have a Famicom board inside of it. Ah, no. This is one of those later versions of Gyromite that actually has a American style Famicom NES cartridge board in it instead of the Famicom cart with the adapter. Well, it was worth a shot. I don't have a NES to Famicom adapter. Well, anyways, at any rate, this happens on my twin Famicom as well, so I think it's an EverDrive problem. Alrighty, I think, let's see, I think we're all good. I think we're all good. Alrighty. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this data pin back the way it's supposed to be for the IGR, and then after that, we can go ahead and close up this NES, or this AV Famicom, because we're done with all the installation steps that needed to be done here. Okay, just a quick recap of what we did. We installed a cap kit yesterday on this AV Famicom. We installed an NESRGB kit. We did the audio balance restoration mod for the NESRGB kit and the expansion audio on the AV Famicom. And we installed the IGR wiring, and we used the Voltar QSB to install the NESRGB. So that pretty much covers it for this one. Because of all the excess wiring I've got in here, I have to install the shield first, and then lay that down inside of the console shell. Let's see. What's there? Okay, so all the wires clear through the openings of the shield. Now we'll just drop this in place. And push these out of the way so that this can sit flush. There we go. And it does all appear to be flush. Alteracious, according to the instructions, it says that the reset jumper should be left open for the Famicom. But for the front loader, you have to close that jumper. It says that it changes the polarity of the reset signal. So I guess it's active high on the front loader and active low on the AV Famicom, or the Famicoms in general. Okay, looks like that's all gonna clear nicely. Oh, you know what? I missed a couple of screws. Actually, I removed a couple of screws that I didn't need to. and I just realized that I didn't put them back in. So on the AV port, there's a couple of screws that go into the plastic. Right here. There's 2 screws there. I didn't need to remove those screws, but I did because I didn't know any better at the time. So I need to reinsert those screws before I put it back together. Yes, the expansion audio has been fixed. Turns out the problem was actually just the there's a jumper on the Voltar expansion or the Voltar NESRGB QSB that needs to be opened up, and it was closed by default. But right here, right under here, there's a jumper there that was closed, and it connected the audio output straight to the AV port audio output. And what that did was it was mixing the AV port output into the expansion audio signal, so it wasn't mixing the audio correctly, and so we were hearing the AV out as the primary audio, and the expansion audio was way low in the mix, so you couldn't really hear it. So removing that jumper caused the mix to be balanced correctly, and now it's all good. And that was listed on the LaserBear product page for the Voltar NESRGB QSB kits. I just didn't read it before going into the installation, so I didn't know. My screwdriver's magnet was not strong enough. Come on, screw. There we go. Are these screws not? Well, they are slightly magnetic. My screwdriver just doesn't have enough power. Hey, let's see. All right. I'm gonna fire it up one last time for good measure. And then we will move on to the Genesis. All right, how we sounding? How we looking? Yeah, you know, it's funny, the expansion audio was there. The expansion audio was actually there in the last stream, but you couldn't hear it because with that jumper closed, the cartridge audio was basically, or the standard audio was basically getting doubled in the mix. So you were getting the standard, you know, AV port audio fed back into the cartridge audio along with the CPU audio, and it basically doubled the volume of the cartridge audio, or the standard AV port audio, and the cartridge audio was still at the correct volume level. so you couldn't hear it because it was so low in the mix. And removing the jumper brought the overall volume level of the audio back down to normal because the AV port audio was no longer being doubled. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and call that for the NES, and we'll go ahead and get the Genesis out and start working on that one. Oh, the issue with the audio was that there is a jumper on the Voltar USB that needs to be cleared, specifically for the AV Famicom, because basically if you don't clear the jumper, then the audio out to the AV port gets mixed in with the audio out that you're trying to send to the cartridge, and it screws up the mix, the volume for the mix of the two audio sources. So basically, we were getting cartridge audio, but the regular, standard audio was overpowering the cartridge audio because it was no longer mixed correctly. So that's why. Okay, we're doing a cap kit and a triple bypass. Okay. Hold on just a second. I just remembered I don't have a cartridge in here for Genesis. Let me go grab one. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick test on this Genesis before I start working on it. Oh. This power plug is not... I thought that this power plug should have been compatible with the Genesis 2. It's a center negative. Hold on. I gotta find a Genesis 2 power supply, because this power supply is supposed to be universal for Genesis and Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, but apparently it's not the right size plug for Genesis 2. Hold on. Let's see, I think this one might be the right one for Genesis. Okay, yeah, this is a center negative power supply. Let me... I'm gonna grab my own Genesis 2 and test it first. With this power supply before doing anything with the customer console, because man, no, this plug doesn't fit either. Where is my power supply for this one? I guess I modified for Super Famicom. It's another one that I've got set up for Super Famicom. This sucks. Okay, let me check my... Okay. Is the JVC XI the same plug? Is it center negative? No, the XI is center positive, so I can't use that one. Man. Well, this sucks. Let's see what I got over here. I'll be able to work something out. No, that's too large as well. Oh, wait, I found it. Haven't worked on a Genesis 2 in a while. So... Oh, wait, no. Genesis 2 is center positive. Yeah. It's the Genesis 1 power supply that's center negative, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is the correct adapter. But I am gonna, since I haven't fired up a Genesis in a long time, I'm gonna test my own personal Genesis before I plug in the customer one. This is just a spare Genesis 2 that I have kicking around. Yeah. Retro my bits. I thought I had a universal one, but apparently not. I have one that has multiple different connections, but it's seems like it's only for NES and Super Nintendo. Okay, looks like we're all good here. Okay, Mixed Bomb. Your question was iFlash PS2. You got an MC2 SIO. That's probably the best option you got for a 7501. You can't install the iFlash mod on the 7501 because it doesn't have an IDE controller anymore. By that revision of the PS2, they had removed the actual chip that was able to provide IDE on the Slims. So that's why the IDE mods are no longer compatible past the 70,000 series. Well, the main difference is compatibility between the iFlash mod and the MC2 SIO. The compatibility is pretty good on the MC2 SIO, but it's higher on the iFlash. It's got the same compatibility as like a regular IDE hard drive on a fat PS2. I think one of the issues with the MC2 SIO and MX4 SIO mods is that they are not as fast as the optical drive, so you still get stuttering and stuff on yeah, there's tons of capacitors on the Genesis 2. It's crazy. Yeah, you might get stuttering in some cutscenes and stuff with the MC2 SIO, and you don't get any of that on the iFlash, so that's really the main difference. What revision is this motherboard? Oh, MG2 VA1. I feel you, Retro My Bits. I absolutely feel you. Every day I wake up and I think, today's the day I'll play a video game, and then I end up working on a project all day. The time to play video games never seems to come anymore. Right, the triple bypass. Seems to be a little light on the instructions. It's been a while since I've installed one, so let's see. There's got to be a wiki, right? Da, 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 da. Triple bypass. Installation guides. Model 2. Huh, okay, there's a VA0 mod guide, but not a VA1. So is the VA1 the same as the 2? Model supported for the following models very similar in layout. So VA1 is almost, the guide almost works for VA1, but there, I guess, is some differences. All right, well, we're just going to roll with this VA0 guide, and if anything is not correct in it, we'll figure it out whenever we get to it. So, we're removing some capacitors, which is great for the recap because we don't have to reinstall those. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the capacitors that we're taking out for the triple bypass mod. And then I'll mark the spots that are being removed for the triple bypass. And then I'll go ahead and do the rest of the cap kit. And then I'll come back and we'll do the, we'll actually do the triple bypass installation after that. Okay, so these two capacitors need to be removed. This capacitor needs to be removed. These two capacitors need to be removed. Aha, this is different. So the routing for these capacitors is different. I'll have to look and see what is the What are the capacitor numbers for those? Okay, it doesn't say. Great. Okay, let's try to do a little interpretation here. I'm going to look at this picture of the caps already removed and see what connects to what. CE4, CE2, CE5. CE8, CE31, CE1. Okay. All right, so I know which ones to remove. The VA0 and the VA1 are laid out slightly differently here, but it's not that big of a deal. All right. So we're moving CE32. And then we're removing CE10 right here. Mix bomb, you're gonna find a 75,000 on eBay with a broken drive and motherboard swap it. Why? If you want to install the iFlash mod, you can't use a 75,000 series. You have to use a 70,000 series. But if that's not what you're saying, then okay, we need to remove CE5. Well, CE4, which is this one here. Okay, then we need to remove CE5 and CE2. So CE5, CE2. Okay, and then we need to remove CE8, which is this one here. And then we also need to remove CE31, which is that one there. And then we also need to remove CE1. All right, all the caps for the triple bypass have been removed. All right, I marked those locations so I don't try to replace those caps. Okay, we got our cap kit here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up console 5 real quick. All right, fantastic. We got a capacitor list here. So most of the capacitors appear to be these 10 microfarad capacitors. Yep. All right, so what all we're going to be replacing, looks like we've got 1, 2, yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like 8 of these 10 microfarad capacitors. So I'll go ahead and swap those out now. That one is not going to cooperate. Let me add some solder. Is it hard to find those 70,000 consoles? I think it's really easy. I've had no trouble finding them. The 70,012 is like seems to be like the most common slim I can find. If you go on eBay, it should be pretty easy to find them. You can install them on a 70,001 as well, but I don't recommend it as much because the 70,001 is runs hotter and is louder because of the different configuration on the motherboard. It's got a separated emotion engine and graphics synthesizer chip, like the fat PS2s, instead of the newer, cooler running combined emotion engine graphics synthesizer chip that's in the 70,012. So it ends up being a lot louder and a lot hotter running. But the iFlash does work in those consoles. It's just they're I would say not as desirable. Yeah, the no power consoles, here's the thing about the no power consoles. Whenever I buy PS2s for whenever I sell pre-modded consoles, I almost exclusively look for no power consoles, because usually what's wrong with them is, let's see, on the motherboard where the power DC jack is, a lot of times this pad is broken because, you know, these PS2 Slims are pretty small. They can fall and smack into the ground, and then it just causes this power plug, this pad on the power plug to break off of the board. But you can actually fix that easily with it. Just put a jumper wire here and jumper it over to these pads here, and that fixes it. You want to use a thick gauge wire, because this is the power for the whole console, but most of them are going to be like that. However, not all of them are going to be like that. So, you know, it's kind of a risk. You don't know for sure. Some of them have more complex problems. I had one with actually, this is a parts motherboard right here. I pulled this chip off of here because I had one board that this chip was shorting out. Failed internally somewhere, shorting out, and that caused a fuse to blow. And you couldn't, if you put a new fuse in, it would blow immediately. So there are odd things that can happen, but most of them that I've found that have no power, they just have a broken trace on the DC jack. Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of risk to it. You're right. Oh, this sucks. It totally sucks. They've got these two leads right next to each other. And one blocks the other one from being able to be accessed by my desoldering gun. Power on with a green light for a second, then back to red is a fuse issue. That's typically, I believe, I think it's PS17 is blown whenever that happens. Now, the thing about that is you can replace PS17, and that might fix the issue. Or the fuse might blow again because the issue that caused the fuse to blow in the first place may be something else. Sometimes that fuse blows for no reason. Like, because I've had them come through here where they have that fuse blown. I replace the fuse and it's fine. There's not a problem. But in other cases, there might be something else wrong somewhere else on the board that causes that fuse to blow. Yes, the V12 PS2s have an issue with the laser, with the Mechacon. The Mechacon that drives the laser can, under certain circumstances, lock up and basically fry the coil inside of the laser, killing the laser. That's what the pick fix is for. It basically is just a mod that is able to detect whenever the Mechacon crashes and shut the console down so that it doesn't burn out your laser. The V13 boards, motherboards, have a fix for that, so you don't need the pick fix, but that's the only real main difference between the V13 boards, is that they have a Sony developed a fix that's similar to what the pick fix does. That's just part of the design in the V13. Oop. That's not the right capacitor. There it is.